Fated legends, they called us, until we entered the battle. Captain stood on the bridge of the Defiant Echo, staring at the message that had just arrived. His hands gripped the edge of the command console. Behind him, Lieutenant leaned forward, reading the same words on her screen. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. 800 years. That was how long Earth had been alone. 800 years since the galaxy had decided humanity was too dangerous, too primitive, too violent to be part of their grand coalition. The first contact war had been brief and brutal. Earth lost. The aliens won. And then they built a barrier around the solar system and left humanity to rot in isolation. "They want our help," finally said. Her voice carried disbelief. "After everything, they actually want our help." Turned to face her. His face showed the lines of someone who had spent too many years waiting for something to happen. "Read it again. Make sure we understood it correctly." Pulled up the message. An alien called Ambassador had sent it. The words were translated into simple language, probably because the aliens thought humans were still primitive. The message explained that something called the Devourers was destroying everything in its path. The Galactic Coalition was losing. Badly. They needed every ship, every weapon, every soldier they could find. Even the forgotten ones. "They're desperate," said. "They wouldn't ask us otherwise." Engineer Wu entered the bridge, wiping grease from his hands. He had been working in the engine room as always. The Defiant Echo was old, and old ships needed constant attention. "I heard the alert. What's happening?" Gestured at the screen. Wu read quickly, his eyes widening. "They remember we exist. I thought they forgot about us decades ago." "They did forget," replied. "But now they're dying, and suddenly they remember the humans they locked away." The three of them stood in silence. Outside the bridge windows, Earth hung in space, blue and green and beautiful. It was home. It had been humanity's only home for 8 centuries. During that time, humans had rebuilt. They had united under one government. They had explored every corner of their solar system. They had built ships and weapons and waited for the day when the barrier might fall. But they had also remembered. Remembered the contempt in alien voices. Remembered being called warmongers and savages. Remembered watching their ships burn as they tried to defend themselves. "What do we do?" Wu asked. Looked at both of them. Was young, only 30, but she was the tactical officer he had ever known. Wu was older, with gray in his hair, and he could fix anything with spare parts and determination. These were his people. These were humanity's people. "We call Earth Command," said. "This decision is bigger than us." The transmission went down to the planet. Within hours, every government leader on Earth was in a meeting. The debate raged for 2 days. Some said humanity should refuse. Let the aliens who abandoned them face their doom alone. Others said this was revenge enough, watching the mighty coalition beg for help from the species they called primitive. But there were other voices too. Voices that said humanity was better than that. Voices that remembered Earth's old values from before the isolation. Values about helping those in need, even enemies. Values about proving yourself through actions, not words. Admiral addressed the Global Council on the second day. He was old, nearly 80, but his voice still carried strength. "They called us faded legends, stories they barely remember. They think we're weak. They think we're obsolete. I say we show them what legends really are." The vote was close, but it passed. Earth would send its fleet. Received the orders 12 hours later. He assembled his crew in the main hangar. The Defiant Echo wasn't alone anymore. 20 other ships had been gathered, from massive battleships to small frigates. It was barely a fraction of Earth's full military strength, but Earth Command was cautious. This could be a trap. This could be another attempt to destroy humanity. "We're going out there," told his crew. "We're going to join a fight that isn't ours for people who hate us. We're going to fly our old ships against an enemy we know nothing about. Some of us won't come back." He looked at their faces. Young and old, men and women, all of them volunteers, all of them ready. But we're also going to remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us in the first place. They locked us away because we were dangerous. Let's show them they were right to be scared. Checked her systems. Wu ran final diagnostics on the engines. The crew took their positions. Throughout the small fleet, the same scene played out. Humans preparing for war in ships the galaxy considered ancient. The defiant Echo's engines roared to life. One by one, the human ships left Earth's orbit. They passed the Moon, past Mars, and headed toward the edge of the solar system where the barrier had stood for so long. As they approached, something amazing happened. The barrier, that invisible wall that had kept humanity trapped, flickered and vanished. The coalition had lowered it. The path was open. Sat in his command chair, watching the stars that humanity hadn't seen in centuries. Navigator, set course for the coalition staging ground. Engines to maximum. Yes, sir, came the reply. The human fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, Earth grew smaller. Ahead of them, the galaxy waited. A galaxy that thought humans were gone. A galaxy about to learn that legends never truly fade. They only wait for the right moment to return. The coalition staging ground was unlike anything humans had seen before. Massive space stations floated in formation, each one larger than Earth's moon. Ships from 100 different species filled the void, sleek and shimmering with energy shields. Their hulls were smooth, their designs elegant. They looked like works of art that happened to have weapons. Then the human fleet arrived. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Will. He watched as alien ships appeared around them. The difference was obvious and embarrassing. Human vessels looked like floating scrap yards compared to these beautiful alien craft. The Iron Will's hull was from centuries of use. Patches covered old damage. The paint had faded long ago. Sir, we're receiving multiple scanning signals, the communications officer reported. They're examining our ships. Could imagine what they were seeing. No energy shields, just thick metal armor. No quantum drives, just old fusion engines. No plasma weapons, just in missiles. The humans had brought museum pieces to a modern war. Let them look, said calmly. They asked for our help. On the defiant Echo, watched as a massive alien command ship approached. It was 3 times the size of his vessel and glowed with a soft blue light. A communication request came through. This is Coalition Command Ship Eternal Dawn. You are the human vessels. The voice sounded surprised, almost disappointed. This is Captain of the Defiant Echo. Yes, we are the human fleet. There was a pause. Acknowledged. Proceed to Docking Bay 47 for briefing. Standing beside frowned. Did you hear that pause? They're trying not to laugh at us. I heard it, replied. The briefing room was enormous, designed for species of all different sizes. Admiral led the human delegation. With him were, and several other commanders. They also brought Doctor, a scientist who specialized in studying alien technology, and Pilot Jin, who had insisted on coming even though he was just a fighter pilot. The Coalition Military Council was already assembled. Dozens of alien species, each stranger than the last. Some had scales, others had feathers. Some floated, others stood on multiple legs. They all stopped talking when the humans entered. The silence was awkward. Finally, a tall alien with silver skin and 4 arms gestured toward some seats. Welcome, humans. I am High Commander. We appreciate your arrival. His tone said otherwise. He sounded like someone thanking a child for trying to help with adult work. Sat down. What's the situation? Activated a holographic display. It showed a portion of the galaxy that was simply gone, replaced by darkness. The Devourers, they appeared 2 years ago. They consume everything. Planets, stars, ships. Their technology adapts to our weapons. We've lost 3 major fleet engagements. We estimate 4 months until they reach the core worlds. Doctor leaned forward, studying the image. Her fingers moved. manipulating the display to show different data. The alien commanders watched her with barely concealed amusement. "I need access to your combat recordings," said, "and all censored data from encounters with these devourers." "That information is classified," another alien commander said. He had scales and spoke through a translator device. "Then why did you call us?" asked sharply. "You want our help but won't share information." Raised a hand. "Peace, you'll receive the data." He turned to his staff. "Give them access, limited clearance." The meeting continued for hours. The coalition explained their battle plans. Sophisticated, complex strategies that relied on energy weapon calculations and shield harmonics. They used terms the humans barely understood. Technology humanity had never developed during their isolation. When it was over, addressed directly. "Admiral, we've assigned your fleet to rear guard position. You'll protect our supply ships. Stay away from direct combat. Your vessels are not equipped for modern warfare." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Understood." As the humans left, they passed groups of alien officers. The whispers weren't quiet enough. "Did you see those ships? They still use combustion-based missiles. 800 years behind. This is embarrassing. Why did we even call them?" Jin clenched his fists, but Commander grabbed his arm. "Not here," she whispered. Back on the Defiant Echo, the command staff gathered. Doctor had spread data across multiple screens. She had been studying the Devourer attack patterns for 6 hours straight. "There's something wrong," she said suddenly. "Look at this. The Coalition says the Devourers adapt to their weapons, but watch this sequence. The adaptation happens too fast, almost instant. That's not learning, that's coordination." Joined her examining the data. "You're right, they're connected somehow, like a hive mind but faster." "Quantum entanglement," whispered. "They have to be using quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication. If we disrupt that, they'd be confused, finished, vulnerable." "Did you tell the Coalition?" Wu asked. Nodded. "I sent a report. They dismissed it, said their scientists had already explored that possibility." "Which means they didn't actually read it," said angrily. "They saw it came from a human and deleted it." Admiral entered the room without knocking. His face was grim. "I just received the battle assignments. We're on the far edge of the formation. They want us out of the way." "Sir," said carefully, "what if we're not meant to survive this? What if this is just their way of finishing what they started 800 years ago?" "The thought crossed my mind," admitted. "But I don't think so. They're truly desperate. They just don't believe we can help." Jin spoke up from the corner. "Then we prove them wrong. My pilots have been training in the simulators. We used the combat data they gave us. The Devourers are dangerous, but their attack patterns are predictable. They rely on their adaptive defenses too much." "What are you suggesting?" asked. "I'm suggesting that maybe old-fashioned tactics work against new technology," Jin said. "The Coalition fights with computers and calculations. We still remember how to fight like our ancestors. Fast, aggressive, unpredictable." Looked around the room. These were his officers, his people, the representatives of a species the galaxy had forgotten. "Get some rest," he ordered. "The Devourers will be here soon, and when they arrive, we'll show the Coalition what happens when you underestimate Earth." As they filed out, paused at the door. She looked back at where the elegant alien ships patrolled in perfect formation. "They think we're primitives," she said softly. "Good, let them think that. They'll learn the truth when it matters most." Outside in the cold void of space, the human fleet waited. Old ships with old weapons, crewed by people the galaxy called faded legends. But legends, as Earth was about to remind everyone, have a way of coming back when you need them most. The alarm started at 400 hours. Every ship in the Coalition fleet screamed warnings simultaneously. The Devourers had arrived. Was already on the bridge, having slept in his command chair. He pulled up the tactical display and felt his stomach drop. The enemy fleet was massive. Hundreds of dark shapes emerged from faster-than-light travel, blocking out the stars behind them. They didn't look like ships. They looked like pieces of night itself had decided to move. All human vessels, battle stations. Admiral's voice came through the communications system. Hold formation. Wait for orders from Coalition Command. Worked frantically at her console. They're bigger than the data suggested. Each one is at least a kilometer long, and there are so many. The Coalition fleet moved into position. Their ships formed elegant lines, shields shimmering to life with beautiful colors. Weapons charged with a building hum that could hear even through the vacuum of space, transmitted through his ship's sensors. Commander's voice broadcast across all frequencies. All vessels, maintain formation. Fire on my command. Target their primary coordination nodes. They must not reach the threshold gate. The Coalition opened fire. Beams of pure energy, brighter than suns, lanced across space. Missiles that curved and twisted like living things streaked toward the Devourers. For a moment, it looked glorious, like a force of nature itself attacking the darkness. Then the Devourers adapted. Their hulls, if they could be called hulls, shifted and changed. The energy beams hit them and simply vanished, absorbed or redirected. The smart missiles exploded harmlessly as the Devourers' defenses learned and countered. Within minutes, the Coalition's primary weapons were useless. Impossible, whispered. The adaptation speed is even faster than the data showed. The Devourers returned fire. Black beams that seemed to tear holes in space itself reached out. When they hit Coalition shields, the shields held for perhaps 2 seconds. Then they failed catastrophically. Ships exploded or went dark, their power systems overloaded. Coalition front line is breaking, the tactical officer reported. His voice shook. They're retreating. On the command channel, panic spread. Alien voices shouted over each other. Ships that had looked so beautiful moments ago now scattered in disorder. Some fled. Others tried to reform defensive lines. The Devourers pressed forward, methodical and unstoppable. Commander stood on her frigate's bridge, watching the massacre. Her ship, the Steadfast, was with the other human vessels at the rear of the formation. This is insane. They're getting slaughtered. All ships pull back to fallback position, commanded, his voice strained. Retreat to the secondary line. Move. Admiral watched from the iron will. The Coalition's elegant ships rushed past the human fleet, engines blazing as they ran. The Devourers followed, their dark forms moving with terrible purpose. In the chaos, made a decision. All human ships, this is, disregard retreat order. All vessels advance, intercept the enemy. There was a moment of shocked silence on the human channel, then responded. Confirmed, defiant echo advancing. Steadfast advancing, Commander added. One by one, every human ship acknowledged. While the Coalition fled, the human fleet moved forward. Their old, patched, supposedly obsolete vessels accelerated toward the Devourers. What are they doing? An alien commander shouted on the general channel. The humans are advancing. They'll be destroyed. Pulled up the weapon systems. We can't use energy weapons. Ours are all we have. Then we use, replied calmly. He opened the ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the captain, we're going in. We do this the old way, the human way, hold on. On the iron will gave orders. Tactical, I want targeting solutions for kinetic weapons. Tungsten penetrators, maximum velocity. Don't aim for their surfaces. Aim through them. The human fleet spread into attack formation. It wasn't the neat, calculated positioning of the Coalition. It was aggressive, almost reckless. Ships paired up, covering each other like fighter pilots from Earth's old wars. The Devourers noticed the approaching humans. Some turned to engage. Their black-beam weapons charged up, the same weapons that had torn through Coalition shields. Energy spike detected, warned. They're targeting us. Impact in 10 seconds. Brace for impact, ordered. The beam hit the defiant Echo. There were no energy shields to fail. The beam struck armor, thick metal plates that had been forged in Earth's orbital foundries. The outer layer vaporized. The second layer melted, but the third layer held. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Damage reports flooded in, but the ship was intact. Hull breach on Deck 6, Wu reported from engineering. Sealing it now, we're okay. Return fire, commanded, full barrage. The defiant Echo shuddered as it's fired. Tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. They were simple, just metal moving very, very fast, but simple worked. The rods hit a devourer vessel. The enemy's adaptive defenses, calibrated for energy weapons, didn't know how to respond to solid mass traveling at relativistic velocity. The rods punched through the dark hull like paper. Explosions bloomed inside the devourer ship. Across the battlefield, other human ships opened fire, roared. Missiles with chemical explosives and old-style guidance systems streaked out. Nuclear warheads detonated in bright flashes. All technology that the galaxy had moved beyond centuries ago. All technology that the devourers had never encountered. "We're hurting them," said with disbelief. "Our weapons are actually working." Pilot Jin led a squadron of human fighters into the chaos. The small craft were barely 30 meters long, propelled by simple fusion drives, but they were fast and maneuverable. Jin's voice came over the squadron channel. "Remember training. They're big and slow. We're small and fast. Use it." The fighters dove between devourer ships, weaving patterns that no computer could predict because they weren't calculated at all. They were based on instinct and reaction. Jin fired his weapons at point-blank range, targeting what looked like sensor clusters. Other pilots followed his lead. A devourer fired at him. The black beam missed by centimeters. Jin pulled his fighter into a spin that would have killed most aliens from the acceleration. He came around and fired again. Doctor broadcast from her station on the defiant Echo. "I'm transmitting my findings on their quantum communication network. If anyone from the Coalition is listening, target their coordination nodes with electromagnetic pulse weapons." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a Coalition science vessel, having regrouped, fired an experimental EMP weapon. It hit a central devourer ship. The effect was immediate. The entire enemy formation stuttered. Their movements became jerky, uncoordinated. "It worked," shouted. "They're confused." "All ships concentrate fire," ordered. "Hit them while they're disorganized." The human fleet pressed the attack. More rounds, more missiles. Commander Steadfast took a direct hit that tore off its port engine, but she kept fighting. "One engine is enough," she growled. The Coalition forces, seeing the humans actually damaging the devourers, began to rally. Some ships turned back to rejoin the fight. They adjusted their tactics, using their energy weapons in shorter, more intense bursts that the devourers couldn't adapt to as quickly. But the cost was high. A human destroyer, the Resolute, took multiple hits. Its captain commander gave the evacuation order too late. The ship exploded, taking 200 souls with it. Watch it happen on his screen. 200 people, people who had believed in Earth, people who had volunteered for this. "Keep firing," he said quietly. "Make it count." The battle raged on, vicious and brutal. No elegance, no grace, just violence and determination. And slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The defiant Echo shook violently as another hit struck its starboard side. Sparks showered from overhead conduits. The lights flickered and went to emergency red. Gripped his command chair to stay upright. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 9, the damage control officer reported. Her voice was steady despite the chaos. "Fire on deck 7, damage control teams responding." "Seal the breaches," ordered. Route power around the damaged sections. Weapons status. Console was a mess of warning lights, but her fingers never stopped moving. Batteries 1 and 3 offline, 2 and 4 still functional. Missile tubes at 60%. We're running low on tungsten penetrators. Then make every shot count. Through the bridge windows, the battle had become a confused melee. Human ships and coalition vessels fought side by side now, driving into the Devourer formation. The enemy tried to adapt, tried to coordinate, but Dr. EMP strikes kept disrupting their quantum communication network. Every few minutes, another pulse would hit, and the Devourers would stagger like a boxer taking hits. But they were learning. Even disrupted, they were dangerous, and there were so many of them. Jin's fighter squadron had been reduced from 12 to 6. His wingman, a pilot named Sora, flew beside him as they made another attack run. Her fighter was trailing atmosphere from a hull breach, but she refused to pull back. "Target that big one," Jin commanded, marking a massive devourer that seemed to be coordinating others. "All remaining missiles, fire on my mark." They dove toward the enemy ship, defensive fire streaking past them. At the last moment, Jin called out, "Mark." 6 missiles launched. 5 hit their target, punching into the Devourer's hull. It shuddered and began to break apart, but as it died, it fired one last time. The black beam caught Sora's fighter dead center. "Sora!" Jin screamed. There was no response. Her fighter tumbled away, dark and silent. Jin felt rage burn through him, not the hot, explosive kind, the cold, focused kind that made him dangerous. He switched to the squadron channel. "Form up. We're not done yet." On the Iron Will, Admiral stood at the tactical display, blood running down his face from a cut above his eyebrow. He ignored it. The battle was reaching its critical point. The coalition had reformed their lines, and together with the human fleet, they were actually pushing the Devourers back. But his forces were being destroyed in the process. 13 human ships had started this fight. 4 were gone. 3 more were severely damaged and pulling back. That left 6 ships still in the battle, 6 against hundreds of Devourers. "Admiral, we have a problem," his tactical officer said. "The enemy is concentrating on the Defiant Echo. They're trying to eliminate Captain's ship." Looked at the display. It was true. Multiple Devourer vessels were converging on its position. They had identified the Echo as a threat and were moving to destroy it. "All human vessels converge on the Defiant Echo's position," ordered. "We protect our own." Commander's damaged Steadfast turned hard, her one remaining engine straining. "On our way." On the Defiant Echo, things were desperate. Counted at least 7 Devourer ships closing in. The Echo's weapons were depleted, its armor was breached in dozens of places, and half the crew was fighting fires or sealing hull breaches. "We need to retreat," the executive officer said. "We can't fight them all." Looked at him. "If we retreat, the line collapses. The Devourers break through. This is where we stand." Engineer Wu's voice came through the intercom from deep in the ship. "Captain, I have an idea. It's insane, but it might work." "I'm listening." "Our fusion reactor is damaged. Containment is failing. I can't fix it in time, but I can overload it. Turn the whole ship into a bomb." Everyone on the bridge went silent, felt his heart hammering in his chest. "How long?" 10 minutes until critical, 15 until detonation, give or take." "And the crew?" "I can't them in time, not all of them." Wu's voice was steady. "But the escape pods can get maybe half to safety before it blows. Your call, Captain." Closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his decision was made. "Negative. We're not sacrificing this ship. And we're definitely not sacrificing our crew. Stabilize that reactor." "Sir, I don't think I can." "Then I guess you better figure it out, Wu. We didn't come all this way to die like this." Suddenly looked up from her console. "I'm picking up coalition reinforcements, a lot of them. They're coming out of FTL now." New ships appeared on the display, coalition vessels that had been held in reserve. But more importantly, they were following human tactics now. Fast, aggressive approaches, kinetic weapons firing. They had learned from watching Earth's forces. One of the new arrivals opened a channel. Human vessels, this is Coalition Battle Group 7. We're coming in hot. Hold your position. We'll be there in 90 seconds. Commander's voice came through next. He was on the Eternal Dawn, which was heavily damaged but still fighting. All forces, the humans have shown us the way. Attack pattern Alpha 7. Close quarters engagement. No quarter given. The Coalition fleet charged forward with new determination. The elegant, calculated warfare they had relied on was gone. Now they fought like the humans fought, brutal, direct, and absolutely committed. The pressure on the Defiant Echo eased as Coalition ships drew off some of the attacking Devourers. Jin's remaining fighters provided cover. The other human ships formed a protective shell around the Echo. Wu status called down to engineering. Reactor is stabilizing, Wu replied. He sounded exhausted. I had to vent half our fuel and shut down non-essential systems, but we're not going to explode. Probably. Probably is good enough. The battle continued for another hour. Slowly, meter by meter, the combined human and coalition forces drove the Devourers back. Doctor coordinated the EMP strikes, keeping the enemy disrupted. Whenever a Devourer tried to adapt to kinetic weapons, energy weapons would hit them. When they adapted to energy weapons, kinetic weapons would tear them apart. Finally, something changed. The Devourers began to retreat, not in panic but in an organized withdrawal. They had calculated that they couldn't win this engagement. "They're leaving," said with disbelief. "They're actually leaving." Across the fleet, exhausted crews watched as the dark ships pulled back and jumped to FTL. Within minutes, the enemy was gone. Silence fell over the communications channels. Then, slowly, cheering began. It started with the coalition ships and spread to the human vessels. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had held the line. Slumped in his command chair. Around him, his bridge crew was battered and bloody but alive. Through the windows, he could see other human ships, the Iron Will damaged but intact, the Steadfast limping on one engine, others scattered across the battlefield. 4 ships hadn't made it. 4 ships full of people who would never see Earth again. People who had died fighting for a galaxy that had abandoned them. "Get me casualty reports," said quietly. "All ships. I want to know who we lost." As the numbers came in, he read every name. Every single person who had died in this battle deserved to be remembered. Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. He looked as tired as felt. "Captain, the Coalition wants to meet with us. They want to formally thank us, and apparently they want to apologize." Nodded slowly. "Tell them we'll be there, after we take care of our dead." "Agreed," said. "And Captain, you did well, Earth did well. We reminded them who we are." The channel closed, moved to stand beside's chair. Outside, Coalition repair ships were already moving among the damaged vessels, offering aid. "Do you think they'll remember this?" she asked. "Will they remember what we did here?" Watched as a human destroyer limped past, its hull and torn but its engines still burning. "They'll remember. We made sure of that." 3 days after the battle, the memorial service was held. The Coalition offered their grand ceremonial chamber, but Admiral refused. Instead, they gathered in space itself, in the debris field where human ships had fallen. The remaining 9 human vessels formed a circle around the location where the destroyer Resolute had died. Inside each ship, crews stood at attention. On the Defiant Echo's bridge stood with Wu and the others. Everyone wore their dress uniforms. Everyone was silent. His voice came through the speakers, reading names. 217 people had died. Every name was spoken aloud. Every person was remembered. When he finished, the human ships fired a salute. Not weapons fire, but bright flares that lit up the darkness. For a moment, the void was filled with light. Coalition ships watched from a respectful distance. They had wanted to participate, but had politely told them this was a human moment, for humans alone. When it was over, touched the window looking out at the stars. They died far from home, he said quietly. They died making sure there would still be a home, replied. The next day, the meetings began. The Coalition Council chamber was massive and crowded with representatives from hundreds of species. At the center sat Commander and the other military leaders. Admiral led the human delegation, with Commander, Doctor, Engineer Wu, and Pilot Jin beside him. The atmosphere was completely different from their first meeting. Then, the aliens had been dismissive and mocking. Now, they stood as entered. It was a sign of respect that the Coalition normally reserved only for their greatest heroes. Admiral began. His 4 arms gestured formally. On behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I must begin with an apology. We called you here out of desperation, not respect. We doubted your abilities. We underestimated your courage. We were wrong. Stood straight, his old uniform decorated with medals from Earth's wars. You were wrong about many things. You were wrong to isolate us 800 years ago, wrong to call us savages, wrong to assume we had nothing to offer. The chamber was silent. No one interrupted. But you were also right about one thing, continued. Humans are dangerous. We're dangerous when we're angry. We're dangerous when we're cornered. And we're especially dangerous when we have something to protect. You saw that at the threshold gate. Ambassador, the one who had first contacted Earth, stepped forward. What you did there saved millions of lives. Billions, perhaps. You held the line when we could not. You taught us new ways to fight, and you paid for it with blood. Yes, we did, agreed. We lost 4 ships, 217 people. That's the price we paid for your survival. Nodded slowly. The Coalition wishes to make amends. We are prepared to offer Earth full membership, full access to our technology, our trade networks, our knowledge. We will also provide reparations for the 8 centuries of isolation, and we will formally apologize for the injustice done to your species. The other delegates murmured in agreement. Some looked genuinely ashamed, others simply looked respectful, but the change was obvious. Humanity was no longer a joke to them. Doctor spoke up, her voice clear in the large chamber. I shared my research about the Devourer's quantum communication network 3 times before the battle. 3 times it was ignored because it came from a human. How many lives could have been saved if you had listened? The question hung in the air. Several alien scientists looked uncomfortable. You're right, one of them finally said. We dismissed your findings. We assumed that our science was superior. That assumption was nearly fatal. You have my personal apology, Doctor. And you have mine, another added. Soon others joined in. Scientists from a dozen species acknowledging their mistake. Nodded, I accept your apologies, but I want more than that. I want a position on the Coalition Science Council, not as a token but as a full member. Earth has had 800 years to develop our own unique approaches to problems. We can contribute if you'll let us. Granted, said immediately, and we would welcome other human scientists as well. Commander cleared her throat. I have a question about your military doctrine. You fight with elegant formations and calculated strategies, but you panic when things go wrong. You need to train for chaos, not just order. A Coalition admiral looked offended. Are you suggesting our training is inadequate? I'm saying it's incomplete, replied bluntly. You train to win. Humans train to survive. There's a difference. We can teach you that difference if you want to learn. There was a long pause, then laughed, a strange sound from his alien throat. You're right, again. Yes, we want to learn. Your tactical approach saved us at the threshold gate. We would be fools to ignore it twice. Pilot Jin, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. My squadron lost 6 pilots. They died fighting for people who had mocked them days before. They died because it was the right thing to do, not because they owed you anything. I want you to remember that." The chamber went silent again. Jin's words cut deeper than any accusation. "We will remember," promised. "A monument will be built at the threshold gate. It will name every human who fell in that battle, and it will remind future generations what happened when the galaxy needed help and Earth answered." Admiral looked at his delegation. He saw steady gaze, quiet strength, Wu's practical wisdom. He saw Jin's defiance and determination. He saw Doctor's brilliant mind. These were his people, Earth's people. "We'll accept your offer of membership," said finally. "We'll accept your technology and your trade, but we're not joining because we need you. We're joining because the galaxy is big enough for all of us, and because fighting alone is pointless when we can fight together." He paused, then added, "But understand this. Earth won't be your backup plan anymore. We won't be the forgotten species you call when you're desperate. We're equals now. Treat us that way or we'll leave and defend our own borders. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear," replied, and accepted. "Welcome to the Coalition, Admiral. Welcome home." The chamber erupted in applause. Not polite applause, but genuine respect. Species that had mocked humanity days ago now stood and cheered. Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to their ships, Ambassador approached privately. "I must ask, when you first came here, did you truly believe you could make a difference? Your ships were so old, your technology so outdated." Smiled. "We didn't know if we could make a difference, but we knew we had to try. That's what humans do. We try even when it seems hopeless, especially when it seems hopeless." "Why?" asked, genuinely curious. "Because hope isn't about knowing you'll win," replied. "It's about fighting anyway. It's about standing up when everyone else sits down. It's about being too stubborn to give up, even when giving up makes sense." He looked at the ambassador directly. "You called us faded legends, but legends don't fade. They wait. They endure. And when the moment comes, they remind everyone why they became legends in the first place." On the Defiant Echo, the crew prepared for the journey home. Repairs had been made, though the scars would remain. Stood on the bridge, watching as Coalition ships moved past in organized traffic patterns. Earth's fleet was being given an honor escort back to the solar system. Joined him at the window. "It's strange. A week ago they thought we were primitives. Now they're treating us like heroes." "We are heroes," replied. "Just like we were primitives. Both things can be true. We're primitive compared to their technology, but we're heroes because we fought anyway." Wu's voice came through the intercom. "Engine room reporting. We're ready for departure. Taking us home, Captain." "Plot a course for Earth," ordered. "Maximum speed, let's go home." The Defiant Echo's engines ignited. One by one, the human ships fell into formation. As they prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, the Coalition fleet fired a salute. Every ship, from the smallest scout to the massive command carriers, launched flares and activated their ceremonial lights. It was an honor reserved for returning heroes, for warriors who had proven themselves in battle, for legends. Admiral watched from the Iron Will, his ship leading the formation. Behind them, the Coalition. Ahead of them, Earth, home. He opened a channel to all human vessels. "This is Admiral. We came out here as forgotten people. We return as legends, not because of what we were, but because of what we did. We held the line. We saved lives. We proved that humanity deserves its place among the stars." He paused, emotion thick in his voice. "Welcome home, warriors, welcome home." The human fleet jumped. In a flash of light, they vanished, heading back to the small blue world that had been their prison for 8 centuries. But they weren't prisoners anymore. They were free. They were recognized. They were legends. And the galaxy would never forget them again. On 1,000 worlds, the news spread. Humans, the forgotten species, had saved the Coalition. Humans, with their ancient ships and primitive weapons, had held the line at the threshold gate. The story grew with each telling, becoming myth, becoming legend. But aboard the human ships, the crews knew the truth. They weren't myths. They were just people who had done what needed to be done, people who had refused to give up, people who had remembered that sometimes the old ways work better than the new. They were legends not because they were perfect, but because they were human. And that, as it turned out, was enough.